Thank you. Very good. That's okay. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. We are ready to start today's Parsha. We are starting actually a new book, and the new book is named the Book of Shemot. The Book of Shemot is something not heading over here. Okay, now it's a little better. The Book of Shemot is the Book of Exodus, which begins this famous story that we celebrate every year on the holiday of Passover, when we have a mitzvah to actually review and get into details and specifics on what happened exactly on Pesach, starting with the story of the enslavement in Egypt, which is what we are learning this week's Parsha. So anybody reads the Parsha, you're going to find that Pharaoh has a very harsh decrees against the Jewish people, gets them to work. He wants all the kids to be thrown into the Nile River. There's the famous survival of Moses, known as Prince of Egypt, in the basket. He is surviving, and then he grows to be a man who goes to watch and tries to sanctify and amplify with his brothers, sisters in Mitzrayim. Eventually, he has to flee Egypt. And we are going straight to the story where Moses is meeting the burning bush. That's what we are starting our class tonight. And if you have a Chumash in front of you, this is on chapter 3 in the book of Shemot, chapter 3, verse 1. The Torah begins, I'm going to just read a couple of verses. Umoshe haya ro'eh et tzon itro chotno kohen Midian. Moses was pasturing the flocks of Jethro, his father-in-law, the governor of Midian. Vayinag et hatzon achar hamidbar, vayavo el ar haElokim choreva. He led the flocks into the desert, and he came to the mountain of God in Chorev. This is the mountain which the future is going to be Mount Sinai, I guess, right? Vayero malach Hashem elov belabas eish mitoich hasneh. An angel of God appeared to him in the flames of a fire from within the thorns, the thorn bush. Vayar, yet Moses gazed and looked, ve'inei, and behold, asneh boer ba'esh, ve'asneh inenu kal. The thorn bush was burning with fire, but the thorn bush was not being consumed by the fire. If you could only have such a miracle in the Palisades in California, things would have looked different. A fire but not consuming anything. Vayomer Moshe. So Moses said, Asurana ve'ere et hamareh hagadol hazeh. Let me turn now and see this great spectacle, this great vision, this great scenery. Madua lo yivar hasneh. Why will the thorn bush not burn? Vayar Hashem kisol lirois, and God saw that he had turned to see. Vayikra elav Elokim mitoch hasneh, and God called him out from within the thorn bush. Vayomer, and he said, Moshe, Moshe. Vayomer, and Moshe said, Hineni, here I am. This is the nature of the righteous. When they hear their name being called by God, they say, here I am, whatever you need. Vayomer, and God said to him, Al tikrav alon, do not draw near here. Shal na'alecha mi'al raglecha. Take your shoes off your feet. Ki hamokim asher ato oimed olav, because the place upon which you stand, Admat Kodesh, who is holy soil. Moshe was asked to remove his shoes, couldn't wear shoes because the place where you're standing is holy. And basically, when you're standing on a holy place, it's disrespectful to stand there with shoes. You got to honor the place. This place was a place which contained a revelation of godliness. And the revelation had impacted the entire mountain. Not only where the fire was, but the entire mountain was now impacted with holiness. And therefore, Moses was told that you're not allowed to walk over with your shoes. In simple words, when you walk with shoes, shoes have the tendency to get dirty, especially if you walk through the desert and you walk through mud and there is no paved roads. And naturally, the shoes are going to become dirty and messy. And it's disrespectful to bring in the dirt, to schlep it inside any dignified place, how much more so a holy place. And this is our commentaries understand the idea of removing the shoes. Nachmanides actually says that it's comparable to what happened later in the temple. When the Kohanim were servicing the temple, they were not allowed to wear shoes. They had to keep their feet on the ground, not even socks. They were working barefoot in the temple, right? Yeah. That was the nature of the service in the temple. Nachmanides actually refers us to another story, which we also find the removal of shoes. This is in the book of Joshua. In Joshua chapter 5, we see when Joshua is about to enter and to start the conquering of Israel, and suddenly, as it says there, he meets somebody which holds a sword in his hands, and he asks him, are you on our side? Are you with our enemies? And the guy or the image responded by saying, I'm not an army individual. I am a malach. I'm an angel. And he asked them, what do you would like to tell your servant? And the first thing that he responds is, Vayomer, it says in the book of Joshua, the minister or the general of the army, of God's army, turns to Yeshua and sits recorded in the book of Joshua. He tells them, Shal na'alcha me'al raglecha. Remove your shoe from your feet. Ki hamakom asher ata omed alav kodeshu. The place that you are positioned on it is holy. So you got to remove your shoe. Actually, in the commentaries, both on our shoe removal and Joshua's shoe removal, are discussing and elaborating on several differences between how the orders came to Moses and how it came to Yoshua bin Nun. And mainly one of the classic and most important differences is that by us it says that God tells them, Shal na'alecha. Na'alecha is in the plural. Remove both shoes. By Yeshua it says, Shal na'alcha. Remove your shoe, your single shoe. So in between one, he was standing on between one shoe, and you only to remove, the other shoe. Similarly, when it comes to Moses, the voice says, you are standing on holy soil. כי המקום אשר אתה עומד עליו, אדמת קודש הוא. אדמה in Hebrew means soil. The soil is holy. By Yeshua, it doesn't say the soil is holy. It just tells them the place you are standing is holy, not emphasizing the soil aspect. And many other differences, which obviously has to do mainly with what type of revelation Moses got and what type of revelation Yeshua received. Different levels require different responses. Not everybody has to remove both shoes. If it's an angel, maybe one shoe is enough. If it's God himself, then you need two angels. So there is all kinds of discussions also, how much of that revelation had penetrated Moses and Joshua. Moses was through and through. Maybe that's why he had to remove both shoes. Joshua only part of them. That's why only one shoe. So this is something which is being discussed in the commentaries. But before we're going into the subject that we'd like to talk tonight, let's speak for a moment about the importance in Judaism of wearing shoes. Wearing shoes. We have a number of references, both in the Talmud, in the Medrash, all the way to Jewish law, about how it is important to wear shoes. And then we're going to see why is the places that we don't wear shoes. So first of all, there is a famous Gemara. The Talmud tells us that it's being quoted in Masechta Shabbat. Over here I have Bernat. He has the computer and he checks, make sure that that I'm giving the right, and I don't make up any of my sources. The tractate Shabbat is in the Talmud, page 129a. Says the Gemara in the name of Rabbi Yehuda, who says in the name of Rab, a person should sell even the poles in his house, the poles of the roof, in order to be able to go buy himself a pair of shoes. Basically, you should sell everything and make sure that you have shoes. And Rashi explains the reason is because if you have no shoes, wearing barefoot in the market is a disgrace. A person looks very disrespectful if he walks around the marketplace without wearing shoes. As you know, every morning when we get up, we have a set of blessings, which are called the morning blessings. You have a blessing for opening your eyes, pokeach ivrim. You have a blessing for stretching, matir asurim. You have a blessing for standing on the floor, roka aretz alamayim. You have a blessing for putting your belt on, Ozer Israel b'gvura. All beautiful blessing, which is all coming from our sages in the Talmud, blessings of praise and thanksgiving to Hashem, that every single Jew says every morning. It's in the first few pages of our prayer books. Yet there is a blessing for putting on shoes. What's the blessing? Baruch atah Hashem Elokeinu melech haolam, blessed are you, God, our Lord, King of the universe, she'asa li kol tzarchi, that he had made and he had given me all my necessities. When do you make this blessing? By wearing your shoes. You put on your shoes, you make the blessing. What's all the necessities relate to shoes? So the simple explanation is, if you have shoes, you can walk to the market, you can go to work, you can earn a living, you can buy groceries, Everything depends on your shoes. If you can't walk, you're stuck. So all your necessity is based on shoes. Matter of fact, if you look in your prayer book, on the list of blessings, when it comes to this blessing, it says there that on Yom Kippur and Tisha B'Av, the 9th of Av, do not say this blessing. We skip it. Every Yom Kippur, we skip this blessing. Every Tisha B'Av, we skip this blessing. Why do we skip it? Because we don't wear shoes. You're going to say, we don't wear shoes on Yom Kippur. The answer is, the real shoe is called the leather shoe. Any shoe which is not a leather shoe is not called a real shoe. It's called a payless shoe. A shoe needs to be made of leather. That's the original shoe. This is the definition of a shoe. And since that neither on Tisha B'Av or Kippur we are allowed to wear leather, we have to remove our leather shoes. We put on other shoes, but not leather. So therefore, in these 2 days, we will not make the bracha. Thank you, I'm fine. We're not making the bracha. Li kol tzarki. We're not going to make this blessing. Because in order to make this blessing, you actually need to wear shoes. And this is not called shoes. Non-leather shoes are not called shoes, according to Jewish law. Call them Nikes, call them Kaikis. They are not called shoes. In the other end, like we said before, when it comes to work and to worship in the temple, we have to remove our shoes. We don't wear shoes. Matter of fact, I looked into what was the custom in communities about walking into synagogues, and I learned something very interesting. That there is a book called Kaftor Bapera that was a traveler with the name of Estoria Parchi. On the 14th century, he traveled to Israel. 14th century, how many years ago? At least 700 years ago, no?
Yeah, definitely.
Right. So he writes in his book that in Israel, they used to remove their shoes before walking into the synagogue. In other sources, in the Talmud, including talking about Babylonia, speaks about actually walking into shul with shoes, because this is the respectful way to stand before Almighty King, is by wearing your shoes. So again, I guess there were different customs, and the Rambam actually says, halachically, that it really depends what is the acceptable, respectful behavior in the locale, in the location that you live. In Arab countries, with the custom and the respectful was to stand in front of the king by removing your shoes, then you daven in a synagogue without shoes. In Ashkenazi countries, Germany, France, which the custom was that when you go to a respectful meeting, you put on your shoes. Therefore, we put on shoes. Today, too, probably most places, the respectful way of meeting someone is wearing shoes. Therefore, we will daven with shoes. But really, there is this concept of shoes, which goes usually as a important and proper way of dress, to wear shoes. And only there are the exceptional places like Moses on the mountain, or like I said before, Joshua coming into Jericho, or working in the temple, when, as it says, when the Shekhinah is there, when the Shekhinah reveals itself, you do not wear shoes. But then we have an important thing to wear shoes. So the difference is very clear. I don't think it needs too much philosophy. The difference is which place are you finding yourself? There are places which require you to remove your shoes, and there are places which you should stay with your shoes. What's the difference? So in one place, I saw the Rebbe actually writes that the whole idea of being on the earth and walking on the earth represents our attachment to earthness, to the physicality of the earth, right? We're stepping on it, we're part of the mundane, of the material. And obviously, we don't want to allow ourselves to get too involved and too sunk into the mundane. So what do we do in order to secure our position as human beings, that we are not completely immersed in earthness, in the worldly, mundane matters? We put on a pair of shoes. Shoes create the separation between the earth and letting ourselves know that we are at least a few inches above the earth. We're not letting ourselves to be completely involved in the earth. Even if a person goes to work and he has to be involved with matters which needs his physical involvement, but a little, as they say in English, keep your head a little above the water. Don't get completely immersed in it. And when it comes in the morning and you put on a pair of shoes on your feet, you're making a statement. What's the statement you're making? I am going to face the world because I need to. That's the way God created it. But at the same time, I'm letting you know, Mr. World or Mrs. World or Mr. and Mrs., whatever it is, I'm letting you know the world, I am not completely giving myself over to your demands. I am wearing a pair of shoes to show that I am a bisala, at least a little bit higher and above it. Matter of fact, we see it even regarding animals. In the book of Vayikra, in Parsha Shmini, it talks about non-kosher animals, and it mentions the animals which work on their feet without having a surface, something to separate their feet from the ground. Let me find it there. So it can be
Well, so pulling.
there's the
Yeah. For
Parsha Shmini.
weights and pull weights with extra.
What do you say?
A horse, if it needs to deal with extra weight that it is shifting, and that's the oxen, they will put shoes on, they are pull heavy loads, because it helps.
In Parsha, the whole oil among all the animals on four legs, any animal that walks on its house. So a dog, bear, or a cat is ritually impure for you. Walking on your paws. What is the paws? The paws is the bottom of the foot without anything to it. Because if you remember, by the kosher animals, they need to have hoofs.
Which is nails, so they're walking their nails.
So they're not walking on their paws. So even an animal who can be an animal, but the moment that he doesn't have anything which separates his paws with the ground, is not edible. He's too grounded. Grounded. I mean, grounded in the negative connotation. He's too for earth to it. right? So you can't walk on your pals. You need to have something. In Yiddish, they call it a padeshve. Padeshves, it's called in Yiddish. The bottom of the shoe. What do you call it in English?
Oh,
The sole, exactly. You need to have soul. You need to have a soul, but you need to have soul.
different spelling, but okay.
A little different spelling, but same idea. You have to give to your soul in order to be able to relate to your soul. Therefore, you need to have a soul. What's the different spelling?
One is S-O-U-L.
S-O-U-L.
Your soul.
That's your soul.
S-O.
S-O-L-E
L-E.
is the soul. So in order to protect your soul, you need to have soul. Exactly. Remind me, we're going to use it as a bumper sticker next time. Protect your soul by wearing souls. Don't expose your pals to the earth. Even an animal is told not to do it. But when it comes to working in the temple, where the land itself is penetrated with holiness, with godliness, then the opposite. Fakert. Don't put on your souls. Don't put on shoes. You want to keep yourself attached to the earth as much as possible.
But in the temple, they had stones.
They have stones and they had to stand on the stones. Exactly.
They had some trouble because it was too
And
cold.
sometimes it was cold and Kohanim used to get sick, but you don't detach yourself from the godliness and from the holiness of the stones. And that's exactly what God tells Moses.
He said in the third temple, they would have underfloor heating.
You wish. When it comes to standing by the burning bush at Mount Sinai, Moses is being told, remove your shoes. Why? Because the soil is holy and you don't want to have any separation. Anything detaching the holiness of the ground with yourself. Let it absorb it, contain it, absorb it. The interesting thing is that even when we are leaving Egypt, which is going to be in 2 weeks from now in the Parsha of Boy, and they are given instructions how to be ready for the journey, they are being told they're going to eat the dinner before leaving Egypt, and they are being told that the dinner should have been eaten while they are wearing their shoes on their feet. Remember that?
Staff in your hand.
A staff in your hand, your shoes on your feet, and your girdle, your belt on your body. Why is it so important to mention that you're going to wear the shoes on your feet? For the very same reason. You are going through the desert. You are still involved with Egypt, making your way to Mount Sinai. But until you get to Mount Sinai, you got to be protected from the earth. Not just physically, I'm talking spiritually. You have to wear shoes to show that I am not a person who is completely attached to the ground. I stand above it a little. Even more so, we have a prophecy in regarding the future redemption. The prophet Isaiah talks about how the future redemption is going to take place. And what does he say in that prophecy? Very clearly, we read it every year on the last day of Passover. There is going to be, just like there was a splitting of the sea when the Jews left Egypt, so the prophet Isaiah speaks about the drying of the river, right? The Jordan River is going to be a dry river, and it's going to be split into seven paths, And the tribes are going to go through the 7 passes. So it says in the verse, Ve'idrich ba'ne'olim. I'm sorry, not the Jordan River, the Euphrates River. Now, Pros. Right? By Babylon. What do you call it? Huh? The Euphrates River is going to be split into seven directions, with the Jewish people coming back from exile. Prophet Isaiah envisions how they're going to walk through those 7 passes. Oh, remind me next time.
Okay.
7 passes, and they're going to walk through it. And what does it say in Isaiah chapter 11, verse 15? It says, "Ve'ishrim Hashem et leshon yan Mitzrayim, ve'inif yado ala nahar be'ayam rucho." With his wind, he's going to blow over the river, and that's going to, just like by the splitting of the sea, and it's going to open it up into dry land so people can walk through it on their way to Israel. Ve'idrich ba'ne'alim, and they are going to step through it while wearing shoes. While wearing shoes. What's the prophet? The prophet has to put a special emphasis that they're going to wear shoes. And what is it? They're not going to wear shoes. They're going to wear, what's this crazy shoe? What is it called that everybody is wearing these days? Crocs? No. I know. The Egypt Banaolim, they are going to walk with shoes. What's about the shoes? What's the importance of shoes? I want to talk a little bit more from a Hasidic point of view, understanding what's the idea of the shoe. Going back with the same concept. The idea is that shoes, a person basically is made of 3 parts. There is the head, there is the body, and then there is his feet. And there is the garments that you use to put on your head when you want to protect your head. There is garments that you use to cover your body, which can be made of all kinds of materials, including silk. And then there is the garment which you protect your feet, shoes. You protect your feet different than you protect the other parts of your body. You protect the feet, you protect it by putting on leather shoes, something thick, something heavy. And what's the reason? And the reason is because when you walk on the earth and you come in contact with the earth and you come down with the rocks and you come down with the dust and with thorns, and you want to make sure that they are protected. Right? That's what the whole idea of the shoes is. So what does Hasidus say? That everybody, every neshama, every soul, every person is being sent a soul down to this world. The neshama is coming down to this world. And we have a mission. And when it comes, the bottom line mission is to elevate the world itself, right? We got to bring the world closer to Hashem. We got to work with the lowest aspects of creation and reunite them with godliness. This is the way it works. And in order, like we said before, in order to protect yourself, not to get trapped in all those physical issues, you got to put on shoes. And the shoes is to protect you. There is the physical shoes, but there's also mentally. You got to have something physical to represent a mental detachment from all this lowliness that you're involved to bring them closer to Hashem. That's the bottom line. So the prophet Isaiah says, you think the Sheikh is going to come, we're going to send the shoes flying. He says, no. After all, those shoes served us through the difficult times of exile. So the Mashiach comes, we're going to take those shoes along with us. because they are the ones who reminded us and protected us from allowing ourselves to be completely involved in this world, and God forbid, maybe sink into it. So when Mashiach comes, the prophet says, you're going to walk, and how are you going to walk? You're going to walk with your shoes. You're going to walk with your shoes, because that was, and this is always going to be the reminder. At the same time, it's not just about the message, which is more like a spiritual message, how to protect yourself from connecting to this world too much, how to ensure that you are remaining above ground, which is wearing the shoes. And when you don't worry, or when you're in a holy place, then you do take off your shoes. But there is more to that. And this is something which is being also explained by our great sages. We're going to go back now to Moses. Moses is standing now at the point by the burning bush that he is going to be introduced with the mission of informing Am Bnei Israel regarding their future redemption. Not only their redemption, he is going to be informed that he is actually appointed to serve as their Redeemer. The Redeemer, Goyal Yisrael, is going to be Moshe. He's going to be leading the nation out of Egypt. So what is Moses ultimately? A leader. He's the leader of the people. And here the Torah gives us a very important lesson about leadership. What's the lesson about leadership? The people of Moses are in Egypt. They are suffering, back-breaking work, working very hard for Pharaoh, decrees, making life difficult. If you look in the verses, mainly if you look in the Medrash, very difficult descriptions how and what the Jewish people had suffered through while being in Egypt. More than it's being told just in the open verses, but much more intense and detailed is what you find in the Medrash. Very difficult. Moses did not and was not part of this difficulty. Moses was a prince in Egypt, like we said before, like the movie says, Prince of Egypt. He was raised after just being born in the house of Pharaoh. He had a warm blanket every night. He had a heater. He had toys. He was taken to Toys R Us. He was being offered good, healthy food. He lived a very nice life as a prince in the palace of the king. His mother, at that point, Batya, the woman who redeemed him from the water, was very much spoiling him and very excited to take care of this young man. But what's the first story about Moses? As he grows up, also in this week's Parsha, that Moses goes out to see and to identify with the suffering of his brothers. That's the story. He gets even involved when he sees somebody is being very disrespectfully treated. He gets involved to the point that it causes Moses to flee Egypt. But he got too involved, right? He took away the life of an Egyptian in order to stand up for one of his people. So Moses obviously did identify, but he never had personal pain. He was wearing very nice leather shoes made from the best materials in Egypt. An Egyptian prince. He definitely did not have any physical pain, which every other person did that had to go through. Our sages tell us, Hasidic masters tell us, that God tells Moses, you are going to be the leader. I want you to become the leader. But I need you to feel some of the angst and pains which the Jewish people are feeling also. Not just theoretically, physically. What does God tell him to do? He's standing on a rocky mountain with pebbles and rocks and desert. And what does it tell him? Take off your shoes, stand with your socks, and feel a little the stoch, feel a little the dig, the pain. You ever tried to walk without shoes on pebbles? Very uncomfortable. Yeah, today there's a whole movement in the world. They walk barefoot, all Meshugasim. I think there is countries, there is groups of people that they identify specifically with not wearing shoes and wearing barefoot. And I think there's even communities in the world that's their philosophical motivation. Don't ask me why and what. Whatever makes people happy. I'm wearing my shoes. I'm not working on pebbles. Whenever you go visit in the summer, you go down to the lake, and the little few steps you got to take with your barefoot into the rocks. We all know how painful and challenging it is, right?
If you walk down to the Dead Sea,
It's even worse.
very, very hot.
Okay, exactly. At least it's sand. Talking about rocks. So our sages tell us, Hashem tells Moshe, you're going to become the leader. You know what a leader is? It's not enough that I'm sending you on the mission. You have to feel what they feel. You know this story, one of my favorite stories I shared probably a number of times with this rabbi of Lodz. Lodz was a city in Poland. And he had a famous rabbi, Meisels, that he was a rabbi who was also personally involved, not only teaching his community and sharing wisdom, but he also got involved. Those days, there were many poor people in the community in Poland to make sure that people have their food and shelter, and mainly wood, fuel to warm up their houses. All those who are sitting in Zoom, you are lucky. If you went to your car and tried to walk to shul, it's pretty cold out here. That's why Mr. Farkash sent schnitzel. For all those who came to class tonight, they have a piece of schnitzel over here. Just to make you jealous a second. You see? Those who came to class get a fresh schnitzel because they went to the cold. You can still come. David, take a piece. Well, you milchik. Watching you died suddenly. Whatever. I'm not asking personal questions. So what's the word? So Rabbi Meisel says this, he used to go and visit homes of people who were more able to, afford it. And he used to ask him to assist the poor of the community. And the story is that Rabbi Meisel comes to one of the houses and he's standing by the door. It's a very cold night. And the host, the owner of the house says, come in, Rabbi. He said, I got to talk to you. He said, come in, we can talk. He said, no, I got to talk to you here. What is it? Come in, it's cold, come in. No, I got to tell you. Start telling him about the people who are sitting in very cold homes and they are freezing and we need to help them. And you have the mitzvah of tzedakah to support it. We're going to buy some wood. Okay. Come in, I will be happy. No, listen, there is this widow and that guy who lost his job and they need wood. Finally, okay, he's coming in. Sitting down on the couch. He brings him a cup of tea and he goes to bring his checkbook to write him a check to be able to share the burden. And he asked the rabbi, I don't understand. Everything you told me I would be very happy to hear while we're sitting here on the couch. Why did you have to stand there on the cold, frosty night by the door, making him a sugar? I was happy. I'm happy to support a cause. And Rabbi Meisel says, I wanted you to feel, not just to give. I want you to feel what those people are feeling in going through in these cold nights, sitting in their houses, but are able to afford heating, to pay for the heat. So for that, I wanted you to stand by the door, and you were good and cold. And when I spoke to you about people who need warm to warm their houses, you were able to relate to it and understand what exactly I'm referring to. And the same is the story with Moses. Moses is about to be sent on a mission to take the Jews out of Egypt, and Hashem tells Moshe, Shal na'alecha mi'al raglecha. You know what? No, take off your shoes. Why? What's wrong with you? Ouch! Moshe takes off his shoe. Ouch! What is that? A rock. Especially a kid who grew up in a palace. Never. Right? Very tender feet. And here he has to stand on a rocky Mount Horeb. Hashem says, oh, it hurts. Now you know what I'm sending you to. I need you to release those people from their pain. Now you can understand the urgency of that mission and the sensitivity of the mission. This is people who are really suffering. And you cannot be a redeemer of suffering people if you don't feel and experience some of their suffering. That's why you got to remove your shoes. Identify with them. There is a saying which I heard from my father once. He heard it from his Rabbi before he came to Chabad. It was called the Rabbi of Toldot Aaron, a great tzaddik, a righteous man, originally from Hungary. And he said, Na'alecha is not only shoes. What's in Hebrew, the word for lacking something is called what? Manul. Lin'ol, to lack. Right? Raglecha doesn't only mean feet. Regilut means accustomed behavior. It's called regilut, להתרגל. Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha, remove the lack of your accustomed behavior. Take off the na'al, the man'ul, unlock yourself. The reason Moses was saying, I see the bush is burning, but I see the fire, but it's not burning, it's not consuming. A person sometimes feels himself also. He feels the fire of his soul. He knows it exists, but it doesn't take over. It doesn't consume him. He gets excited on a good day with a nice experience of Judaism, Shabbos, Yom Tov, Yom Kippur, and then it fades away, disappears. And he's wondering, Madua lo yivara sneh? Why doesn't the fire me up? Did I continue? And the answer is, because you are locked up in your accustomed behavior. You do things without spirit just because it's being done. You're not looking for excitement. Shal na'alecha me'al raglecha. Take off that lock. Take off that, which you are locked in with. Get out of your limitations. And this is really what led Moshe, and what led us out of Mitzrayim. And like we said before, to wear shoes is very, very important. Also called tzarki. Generally, a person has to make sure that he has good shoes. And next time you put on your shoes, you're not only going to take a look and think how comfortable they are for your feet and how good it's going to help you walk. You're going to look at your shoes and say, this is the shoes which reminds me that I am a Jew. I have a mission in life. And whatever involvement I'm in this world, I'm not part of this world. I'm stepping on top of it, and I have always something which separates me. I have some, some soil. Some soil? No, sole. A sole on my shoe, on my feet. Slippers, shoes, Crocs, whatever it is, boots, whatever makes you happy. But no walking on barefoot. We are not a nation who's walking barefoot. We are a nation who's looking to walk with our feet on the earth and to conquer the earth and to elevate it, but at the same time with a shoe. Once we reach holiness, we'll take it off. Temple is going to be built. We're going to walk into the temple. We're going to walk in on our feet, obviously. But until this point, we haven't got to work with. And at the same time, you also learned that removing your shoes, what Moses is a lesson in leadership. To be the proper leader, you got to take off your shoes sometime to feel the pain, to feel what people are going through. So this is one of the many, many lessons in this beautiful Parsha called Shemot, which leads us to the Exodus out of Egypt. Thank you very much. Anybody wants some more schnitzel, you're more than welcome to take. If you want to make your way out here, I'm still going to wait here a little bit. And yes, David has a question.
Why are we given or told that we have to put our shoes on a Jew has to put his shoes on a certain right shoe first?
Go what? Why what?
We have to put our shoes on in a certain way.
This is just a matter of respect that we always put on the right first and the left second, not only shoes. Everything that a person puts on is always the right gets first and the left gets second, because the right represents the strength, and that's what we are working with. Tying the shoe is the left first, because tying is like compared to the tefillin, which you tie it on your left hand. But putting on your shoes is the right first. You have good shoes, David? You're wearing shoes tonight?
No, I came barefooted to feel the pain of the cool.
We never saw the Arabs when they get involved in their, even in England. You saw sometimes they throw shoes there, they fight there in the parliament, they start throwing shoes. An Arab thing. Okay, I wish you all a good night. Laila Tov. We'll see you Bezrat Hashem next week. Pleasure to see everybody.
Hey, Rob,
Make sure
sorry,
you have,
I have a
make sure you
question real
good-
quick.
Yes.
Does this mean that I'm not supposed to make the Natata Ali Kol Tsarki bracha if I'm not wearing leather shoes, or is it okay to make
No,
that
no, no,
bracha
no,
even?
no. You make a bracha because shoes are shoes. It's only been because you
Okay,
you make clear that you are not
that you're not wearing.
a
Okay,
shoe, which is a real shoe.
Avanti, Toda.
Have a good night. All the best, everybody. Thank you.
Rabbi.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Remember when you wear high heels versus